The 1985 Bears defense was not designed to win games. It was designed to end them. Quarterbacks didn't study film against the Bears. They prepared for impact. Some walked off the field shaken. Some didn't walk off at all. And on this night, under the lights, with the entire league watching, the Bears had made one decision very clear. Joe Montana was the target. The first hit came early. Too early to be an accident. Too violent to be normal. Montana released the ball clean. Perfect timing. Perfect mechanics. The whistle blew. And then the helmet arrived. Full speed. Low. Unforgiving. Montana hit the ground hard, ribs driving into the turf as bodies collapsed around him. The crowd reacted late, like they needed a second to understand what they'd just seen. This wasn't pressure. This was a message. The Bears defender stood over him for a moment longer than necessary, breathing heavy, staring down at the man everyone called the calmest quarterback in football. No apology, no retreat. Montana stayed down, not because he was hurt, because he was processing. He pushed himself up slowly, eyes forward, jaw set, no arguing, no signal to the sideline. But something had changed. On the next snap, it happened again. The pocket collapsed instantly. A second defender came free. Montana threw the ball away just in time and still absorbed the hit, shoulder to chest, helmet to jawline. This time the crowd didn't gasp. They went quiet, because now everyone understood the truth the Bears had been living by all season. This defense didn't care who you were. Hall of Famer, champion, legend. They would hit you until you stopped standing. On the sideline, Montana's teammates were furious. A lineman shouted at the officials. A receiver slammed his helmet into the bench. The quarterback coach leaned in close. "You want to slow it down?" he asked. Montana shook his head. Slow meant fear, and fear was exactly what the Bears wanted. Back on the field, the Bears crowded the line, helmets low, hands twitching, no disguises, no subtlety. They weren't trying to confuse Montana. They were trying to break him. Every snap felt like a countdown. Every second in the pocket felt borrowed. Montana took another hit, then another. None of them illegal enough to draw flags. All of them violent enough to leave bruises by morning. By the end of the first quarter, this was no longer about yards or first downs. It was about survival. And that's when the most dangerous thing for a defense like the Bears began to happen. Joe Montana stopped reacting. He stopped rushing throws, stopped looking for escape routes, stopped acknowledging the hits. Instead, he started watching. Where they leaned, how early they committed, which defender needed the moment a little too badly. Because Montana knew something the Bears didn't realize yet. A defense built on fear eventually becomes predictable, and predictability, against the wrong quarterback, was fatal. As he walked back to the huddle after another crushing hit, Montana spoke calmly, almost casually. "They're coming the same way," he said. The huddle looked at him. Most quarterbacks by now would have been thinking about protection. Montana was thinking about punishment, and somewhere on the Bears' sideline, without knowing it, they had crossed the most dangerous line of all. They had turned this game into something personal, and Joe Montana had never lost those. By the second quarter, the Bears' defense believed they had succeeded. Joe Montana was still standing, but barely. His jersey was streaked with grass. His breathing was measured, controlled, but heavier than usual. To Chicago, that looked like progress. They mistook endurance for weakness. The hits kept coming, not reckless, not sloppy, calculated. One defender crashed low, forcing Montana to brace. Another arrived half a second later, high, driving him backward. The ball was gone. The damage wasn't. No flag. Again, the Bears' sideline fed on it. Helmets slapped together. Coaches nodded approval. This was their identity. This was how they ended games, and this was how they expected to end Joe Montana. From the stands, it looked like chaos. From Montana's eyes, it was becoming a pattern. He noticed how the linebackers leaned forward just before the snap, how the edge rushers widened when they sensed pass, how the safeties crept down a fraction too early, eager to deliver the next hit. Fear had sharpened them all season. Tonight, it was dulling them. Montana adjusted nothing at first. No dramatic audibles, no visible frustration. He took the hits, he got up, he reset, and with every snap he learned. On one play, the pocket collapsed instantly. Montana stepped up, nowhere to go, and released the ball into the dirt at the receiver's feet. The hit came anyway. As he lay on his back staring up at the lights, he didn't curse. He counted steps, angles, timing, because the Bears were no longer disguising their intent. They wanted the hit more than the stop. That was the opening. On the sideline, the offensive coordinator leaned in again. "We're getting close to losing you," he said quietly. Montana looked up, calm as ever. "No," he replied. "We're getting close to using them." The next drive changed everything. Montana shortened his drop. One step, two, release. The ball came out before the rush could land clean. Completions piled up. 6 yards, 8 yards, 5 more. The Bears responded by charging harder. They wanted to make him pay. Instead, they started missing. A rusher overran the pocket. Another slipped trying to cut inside. A linebacker guessed and vacated his zone a beat too early. Montana saw it all. He didn't hurry the cadence. He slowed it. Held the count just long enough to make the defense twitch. On third down, the Bears brought pressure from everywhere. Montana recognized it instantly. He didn't audible. He smiled, barely, and took the snap. The rush came fast. Too fast. Montana drifted just enough, slid left, and floated the ball into the space the blitz had abandoned. Completion. First down. The crowd finally found its voice. Not cheers. Relief. The Bears' defense regrouped, irritated now. What should have been domination was turning into work. Real work. That's when frustration crept in. The hits got later. The shoves lasted longer. The discipline slipped. And that was exactly what Montana had been waiting for. Late in the half, he saw it clearly. The Bears wanted the moment. They wanted to break him on a highlight. They were hunting impact, not execution. That was the mistake. Montana gathered the huddle. "They're coming," he said evenly. "Let them." No fear in his voice. No urgency, just certainty. As they broke, the Bears crowded the line again. Helmets low, jaws clenched, eyes burning. They thought this was the drive that would finally end it. Montana took the snap, stood tall, and waited. The rush exploded toward him, and for the first time all night, he didn't flinch at all. He let the defense commit fully, every ounce of violence, every step forward. Then he released the ball exactly where they no longer were. The gain wasn't spectacular, but it was devastating, because it proved something the Bears never wanted to admit. Joe Montana wasn't surviving their defense. He was dissecting it. As halftime approached, the hits kept coming, but the fear was gone. Montana jogged off the field under his own power, eyes steady, mind already ahead. The Bears had spent 2 quarters trying to end him. What they didn't realize was this: they had just taught him everything he needed to finish them. By the time the third quarter began, the 1985 Bears defense believed only one thing still mattered: finish him. They had hit Joe Montana harder than any quarterback they had faced all season. They had collapsed the pocket. They had delivered punishment on nearly every dropback, and yet somehow, he was still standing. That alone felt like an insult. The Bears came out of the locker room with no adjustments meant to confuse. No disguises, no patience. They wanted violence. The first snap of the half confirmed it. The rush came instantly, overwhelming, bodies crashing through gaps with reckless speed. Montana released the ball into the dirt to avoid the sack and still absorbed the hit. Helmet into shoulder, forearm across the chest. He hit the ground hard. The crowd reacted with a mixture of awe and unease. This wasn't dominance anymore. This was obsession. Montana stayed down for a moment, not because he was hurt, because he was measuring the cost. He pushed himself up slowly, breathing steady, eyes calm. On the Bears' sideline, helmets slammed together. Coaches shouted encouragement. This was what they did best. Break rhythm, break bodies, break belief. But Montana's belief hadn't broken. It had hardened. The next drive began cautiously. Short completions, safe routes. Montana didn't challenge the defense yet. He wanted them aggressive, overconfident, and they gave him exactly that. Linebackers leaned forward before the snap. Edge rushers widened their stance, tipping speed. Safeties crept down, eager to deliver the next hit. The Bears weren't playing chess anymore. They were charging. Montana saw it all. He slowed the cadence, let the defense settle into their anger. Then he sped it up suddenly, snapping the ball before they were fully set. The effect was subtle, but devastating. A rusher slipped. Another overran the pocket. A linebacker vacated his zone too early. Montana punished every mistake with precision. 5 yards, 7 yards. First down. Nothing flashy, nothing violent. And that frustrated the Bears more than any big play could have. They wanted chaos. Montana gave them order. Midway through the third quarter, the Bears dialed up their most aggressive look yet. A full blitz. Every angle covered. Every gap threatened. This was the call meant to end the game. Montana didn't audible. He trusted what he had already learned. Snap. The rush exploded toward him. Bodies collided. The pocket collapsed instantly. Montana didn't retreat. He stepped up, waited just long enough for the defense to fully commit, and released the ball over the middle, into the space they had abandoned. The receiver caught it clean. First down. The stadium erupted. Not celebration, shock, because the Bears had brought everything, and it still wasn't enough. Now the tone changed. The Bears' defense started arguing. Hands in the air, shouts across the formation. The unity that made them legendary was cracking under its own intensity. Montana felt it. This was the moment. He gathered the huddle and spoke calmly. "They're coming too hard," he said. "We're going to let them." No fear, no hesitation, just confidence. The drive that followed was the most dangerous kind of football. Montana held the ball just long enough to force commitment. He moved the pocket subtly, never fleeing, always inviting pursuit. The Bears chased, and Montana carved. On one play, a defender came unblocked.
Montana absorbed the hit after releasing the ball, sliding across the turf as the receiver gained another first down. On the next, the rush hesitated, uncertain now, and Montana used that fraction of doubt to deliver a strike into tight coverage. The Bears were bleeding yards, and they hated it. Late in the third quarter, frustration turned into recklessness. A hit arrived late enough to draw a flag. Another shove after the whistle earned a warning. The crowd roared, not in approval, but disbelief. This defense was supposed to be unstoppable. Instead, it was unraveling. As the fourth quarter began, the game tightened. The score was close. Every snap felt like it could decide everything. The Bears knew they had one chance left. They needed a mistake. They needed panic. They needed Montana to finally break. He didn't. On a crucial third down, the Bears brought pressure from the edge, designed to crush Montana before the route developed. Montana recognized it instantly. He didn't rush the throw. He waited. Then, at the last possible moment, he released the ball into the flat, where the blitz had vacated space. The gain wasn't massive, but it broke the Bears' spirit, because it proved the truth they didn't want to face. They could hit him, but they couldn't hurry him. The final drive began with the game still undecided. The Bears lined up knowing this was it. They crowded the line. They showed blitz from everywhere. This was their last stand. Montana stepped under center, eyes scanning calmly. He saw the safety creeping down. He saw the linebacker leaning inside, and he knew exactly what they wanted. He took the snap. The rush came violent and fast. Montana slid in the pocket, just enough, and launched the ball downfield, exploiting the space the Bears had abandoned in their desperation. Completion. The stadium erupted. Now it was inevitable. The Bears still hit, still shoved, still tried to intimidate, but it was over. Montana had taken control. The drive ended with points earned, methodical, undeniable. As the final seconds ticked away, the Bears stood exhausted, helmets off, hands on hips. They had done everything they believed in, and it hadn't worked. After the whistle, Montana walked off the field quietly. No celebration, no triumph, just completion. In the locker room, reporters asked the obvious questions. How did you survive that defense? Montana answered simply. You don't fight fear, he said. You let it show you where the openings are. Years later, players would talk about that night in hushed tones, not because of the score, because of what it represented. The 1985 Bears defense was designed to destroy quarterbacks. That night, they met one who refused to be destroyed. They unleashed brutality. Joe Montana answered with control. And that is why this game was remembered, not as a victory but as a lesson. Fear only wins when you give it permission, and Joe Montana never did.